So Mike, are there any other fun details that you've hidden in there?
Well, I thought we'd end up with the end, which is where I spend most of my time on long distance train rides, is right here. Stand at the rear window looking back on the railroad and watch the flow of freight traffic. You get the really good perspective of the engineering from the design of the railroad to the level of maintenance the particular railroad is doing. And you can watch the flow of traffic in and out of sidings. I have seen some very clever three-way meets just riding back here. And by that I mean on the Empire Builder one day, they told us they were going to pull into a siding behind a freight train and let another freight train by, and then we were going to back out and head down the main line. And it went by as quickly as a NASCAR pit stop. I mean, they did it professionally and smoothly. They didn't waste a second. And I've seen a very similar thing done on the Union Pacific just south of Portland between the north and southbound Coast Starlight and a big freight train in a siding. And so the crews working locally, watching railroaders do railroading from right here. And of course, the thousands of miles I spent riding business cars for the Southern Pacific, riding cab cars for Metrolink, and riding the rear end of Amtrak. It's just a continuum. The most recent Amtrak trip looking out the rear of the train was this June. Parts of the trip from Los Angeles to Portland from Southern California. It's just like it's in my blood, and I like to see how the railroad is working. And you get to see, it's not too social though. Some people come back and ask you what you're doing, and you try to explain it, and they last 3 or 4 minutes, and they say, and then they go back. They want to read their book, or maybe talk with your wife. It's been known to happen on a train. Anyway, so that's the fun part of Amtrak riding.
Mike, are there any other interesting operational things that you could do if you were running Amtrak on a layout?
There's 2 or 3 things I thought I'd mention. If you have a siding that's too short, you'll have to make a saw-by. If one of your trains will fit in the siding or on the main line, get it in the clear, and the other train will have to come by, and the first train can't leave until the longer train has pulled clear of the far switch. That's called the saw-by. Another thing, after the three-way meet, another thing that sometimes happens is the dispatcher will put Amtrak in the siding when it seems like that is a diminution of its priority or importance, but it actually works out for best of all concerned. If the Amtrak gets to the siding a little before the freight train, he can enter the siding and pull down to the other end. If you hold the main line with the siding, that means the freight train has to enter the siding at restricted speed and pull his entire 7 or 9 or 12,000 feet into the siding at 20 or 25 miles an hour and spend a whole lot more time making the meet. So sometimes keeping the freight train on the main is the quickest way to make the meet. And the three-way meet I described can be done on a model train layout, especially with DCC. You can move different engines in the same block, so DCC makes a lot of these things possible where it weren't. One last thing to watch operations on a multiple main line track like the BNSF or Old Santa Fe across northern Arizona and New Mexico. You can see the passenger train running on one track, and you'll overtake 3 or 4 freight trains on the opposite track. The dispatcher is holding them at a set of crossovers, and he's slipping the passenger train around it. You go through the crossovers, and then away you go, and pretty soon you see a headlight on the train behind turn on because now he's ready to follow you. In the meantime, there have been trains in the opposite direction waiting to go, and you can, just like pulling the cork on a bottle, you can see these trains, and of course the sight lines and distances in New Mexico are long enough you can see this happen for quite some distance. Passenger trains do take a lot of capacity, but they kind of think they enforce some operating discipline on the dispatchers and railroad professionals. If you can run one train on time, maybe you can run most of them on time. Just organize your thought. It's intellectually challenging, but it can be done, and you can take a lot of pride in doing it. So those are some of the things I've had a lot of fun just watching the operation. You almost don't need a scanner. If you have a scanner, you know a little bit more what's going on, but by now I don't really bother keeping the scanner on or with me very much.
Well, Mike, thanks for having us at the Southwestern Pacific again and for sharing your knowledge with Amtrak operations.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Trackside Model Railroading because I enjoy every trip to every layout, and I learn something from every article and interview you run. So if I can contribute to that body of knowledge, that's a proud moment for me, and thank you for asking. I enjoy having you guys over.
It's great to hear the firsthand. Yes, thank you so much.